In trading, you might have been led to believe that having a complex trading strategy with a bunch of indicators and trend lines on your chart will lead you to profitability. But what if I told you that's not the case and you'd be better off sticking to price action and liquidity? So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys one simple strategy that I use to make $1,000 a day consistently in the markets, and how you guys can use this strategy and implement it into your own trading systems today to make consistent profits. So before I talk about my price action strategy later on in the video, I want to talk about why keeping your strategy simple is very important when it comes to trading. When it comes to your strategy, you should be able to explain it to a kid. If a kid was to ask you what your strategy is, you should be able to give it in the most basic terms. Obviously, this doesn't mean that we just have one confluence and we just purely trade off trend lines, right? Obviously, there's more that goes into it, like multiple time frame analysis, right? Multiple confluences. But the most basic terms, you want to be keeping your strategy simple. The reason being is that I see too many people have these complex trading strategies that trade ICT, SMC, all these different types of strategies. They make it so complex. They make it so there's 20 different trading models, there's 20 different variations of the strategy, and that just confuses traders. When there's so many different strategies out there, right, it can be very difficult to trade, especially if you're a beginner trying to find your edge in the markets. And when there's so many people out there telling you to trade this, trade that, and you might be so confused on what strategy is better than another. But what you have to understand is that there's never going to be one strategy that works on all markets. There's never going to be one strategy that works better than another. What you have to do is find your own personal strategy that works for you and keep it simple. So with this being said, has your chart ever looked like this? Maybe you've seen this picture before, or maybe you actually had a chart very similar to this, right? Where there's so many indicators on the chart, so many trend lines, right? You have the RSI, the MACD crossover. You just have so many indicators and too much noise on the charts. Me personally, when I started trading, I was led to believe that the more trend lines, the more indicators, the better, right? My chart actually looked very similar to this. I had so many trend lines. I had the MACD, I had the RSI, I had so many indicators, I had so many different EMAs on the chart as well, right? What this does is create too much noise. When you have so many things going on at once, you miss the bigger picture, and what truly matters is price action and liquidity. If you can focus and master those two things, price action and liquidity, you'll become a very successful and profitable trader, right? You have to stop relying on these indicators and focus on what's actually on the chart and what matters on the chart, and which is time and price. So what does a profitable strategy include? You guys heard me talk about keeping your strategy simple in the last two slides, and you want to have less noise on your charts, less indicators, and focus on price action and liquidity, right? So what does a profitable strategy include? And that includes having an edge, right? An edge is very important when it comes to trading, and it essentially means a trading edge is a trading method or approach that helps you accumulate more profits than losses over the long period of time. So if you are able to have a positive edge in the markets over a long period of time, you guys should theoretically become a profitable trader if you have an edge in the markets. The next thing is having a positive expectancy. This is very similar to having an edge in the markets, right? Whenever you have a positive expectancy, that means you're expecting to make money in the long run based off of your trading strategy, based off of your edge in the markets, based off your system over the long period of time. Over 1,000+ trades, you guys should be winning in the long term. Obviously, if your system is not profitable over a 100 trade period, don't expect your system to work over 1,000 trade period, right? You have to have that positive expectancy, and that's where back testing and journaling and trading in the live markets comes into play. Another thing to keep in mind when having a profitable strategy is having proper risk management. This might be one of the most important factors out of all this four. No matter what trading strategy you trade, no matter what asset class you trade, having proper risk management is very important when it comes to trading. You can have an edge, you can have a positive expectancy, volatility in the market. But if you don't have proper risk management, you can lose everything in a couple of trades, right? That's why having proper risk management is so very important when it comes to trading, and being able to identify what type of risk parameters you need to take in order to become a profitable trader in the long term, right? Not in the short term, in the long term, to help you sustain and help you make money on a consistent basis. And the last thing I want to talk about is having a repeatable system. As you guys know, trading is all about repetition and repeating the same thing over and over again, right? If you have a repeatable system that's boring, that is exactly what you want, right? Trading should be boring. It should be mechanical. You don't want something that's too discretionary where you're doing things that are not a part of your system. So having a repeatable system that you can repeat every single day in the markets is going to allow you to become a profitable trader in the long run. And what you guys have to know is that there is no holy grail when it comes to trading. You guys hear people talk online that they have this holy grail trading strategy, they have this holy grail trading indicator, but that's just not the case, right? If you hear anyone ever talking about the holy grail, make sure to stay away, because there's no such thing as a holy grail when it comes to trading. You guys have to understand that there's no one strategy fits all when it comes to the markets. There's not going to be one trading indicator that tells you when to buy and sell. What you guys have to understand is trading is all about probabilities and playing towards your edge. If you have an edge in the markets, that means over the long period of time, based off of probability and statistics, that you're going to make money over the long period. So just understand that there is no holy grail in trading. You're not going to ever have a 100% win rate when it comes to trading, and that you need to understand you have to focus on your trading strategy and figure out what works for you and keep it simple, as I mentioned. So as you can see, this is my basic entry model when it comes to trading. I simply look for the break and retest on price. As you can see right here, we're making higher low, higher high, higher low, and then we break above this key resistance level, and then we come back to retest this level, and that's where I'm going to be looking to buy positions. As you guys know, this is just based off the line chart. It's not going to look exactly like this every time. There's obviously going to be more things that go into it, like higher time frames, multiple confluences as well, but in the most basic sense, right, I'm going to be looking for this retest of this previous resistance level now turn into support for continuation towards the upside. As you can see, this is the exact same thing towards the downside as well. We make a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, retesting this previous support level, now turn into resistance for moves towards the downside. So now I'm going to be talking about some things that you have to look for when trading the break and retest to make it a more high probability setup. So things to look out for when trading the break and retest. As you guys hear me talk about all the time in my previous videos, right, I always mention liquidity, right? Liquidity and understanding the draw on liquidity is so important when it comes to trading any strategy, right? It doesn't have to be the break and retest. You mean trading support and resistance, supply and demand, ICT, SMC, right? You have to understand where the liquidity is resting, and liquidity is always resting above key highs and key lows, right? Those previous day highs and previous day low levels are so key because there's liquidity resting above and below those levels, and we can use those previous day high and previous day low levels as potential entries or exits when it comes to trading. The second is having multiple confluences. I always talk about having multiple confluences. The reason being is that when you have multiple confluences on a chart, when you have the break and retest, when you have the higher time frame levels lining up, when you have the order blocks, when you have displacement, when you have that fair value gaps, when you have multiple confluences on the chart, that's what's going to give you that high probability trades towards either the upside or the downside. When you just have the break and retest, the break and retest on itself doesn't really mean too much, but when you have multiple confluences, you build a thesis around the trade with those multiple confluences. That's what's going to give you those A+ and high confidence setups. The third thing I always like to look for is higher time frames. So you want to be always look at the higher time frames. Higher time frames hold more power. The 1 hour chart break and retest is going to be a lot stronger than a 5 minute or 1 minute break of retest. So understanding the higher time frames and having those higher time frame key levels is very important when it comes to trading intraday. And the last thing is understanding order flow. Do we have a bullish or bearish order flow? Order flow essentially meaning, do we have relative strength in the market? What is the tape telling us? Are we making higher highs, higher lows? What type of trend are we in on the higher time frames, right? If we have relative strength, right, and we're looking to trade that break and retest, right, if you have that relative strength compared to the indices, that's going to give us an extra added confluence to trade the break and retest towards the upside. If we have relative weakness, that's going to give us extra confirmation that we can trade towards the downside for the break and retest. So having these 4 things, liquidity, confluence, higher time frames, and order flow, and making sure that you're looking out for these when trading the break and retest is going to give you those A+ break and retest entries. So now I'm going to be going on to some of the examples that I have for us today. So before I head on to the examples that I have for us today, I just want to mention that I trade every single day live while sharing my screen and executions. Everything you see in these examples are done in real time. Nothing is hindsight when it comes to my trading. I do everything in real time so you can see my thought process, my executions, how I manage a trade, all the way to how I exit and how I'm able to consistently make money in the markets. So if you guys do want to live trade with me, the link is in the description below. So as you can see, we're on my first example here. This was on NVDA back on Tuesday, April the 9th. I traded this live with the Discord group. I made over $3,000. I traded 10 contracts, $11,000 position size, and then making over $3,000. But the main thing in this case is not how much I made, it's how much I risked. So as you can see in this day, I only risked $1,400. So I risked $1,400 to make over $3,000. So that is a 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio, right? Whenever you're trading, you want to always have a positive expectancy or at least a 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio. Me personally, I have around a 50% win rate. So every single trade that I take, I'm going to be looking for a 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio. And if you have a 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio with a 50% win rate, you're going to become a very profitable trader. So now let's head on to the charts that I have for us. So you can see right now we're on the 1 hour time frame on NVIDIA, and right coming into Tuesday, April the 9th, you can see that we're clearly in a downtrend on the 1 hour time frame. You can see we have multiple touches of support right here. You can see we're bouncing around this key support level on the higher time frames. You can see when we finally got underneath this key level, right, price came back up and retested this key level and pushed towards this downside. So coming into the market open, right, I'm going to be looking for continuation towards the downside on NVIDIA. Coming into the day, I'm going to be marking out our key levels, which is previous day low, and then we're going to be marking out these key levels as well, which is this key pivot low all the way back in Thursday, and then we're going to be looking for potential weakness coming into market open. So right now we're on the 1 minute time frame, and you can see as soon as market opens here, right, within the first 5 minutes, you can see how weak price action is, right? This is the previous day low level. So now you can see in the first 5 minutes right here on the 5 minute time frame, as you can see, we have a very strong 5 minute reaction right off of the gates and a very strong push towards this downside. It's already underneath previous day low. So now if we're going to be looking for potential puts, right, we're going to be looking for this previous day low level for a retest to move towards this downside. So as I talked about my model, right, you can see I like to look for a push towards this downside, a retest, and then a continuation towards this downside. So let's see how price plays out. So right now we're on the 1 minute time frame, and if you're looking at this chart, you might see that price doesn't really look like it's rejecting this level on this previous day low level, right, based off the 1 minute time frame. But that's why I always tell you guys to look onto the higher time frames. As soon as we flip onto this 5 minute chart, what does this look like? It looks like a perfect rejection of previous day lows, right? That's why you want to be on the higher time frames as well on the 1 minute time frames. The 1 minute time frames is only good for entries, but you want to be monitoring your position on the higher time frames. So in this case, right, first 5 minutes, very strong push towards this downside, came up, and now we're retesting these levels perfectly. You can see these wicks, right? The wicks are wicking above the previous day low levels, but the bodies are telling the story, right? That's what I always tell you guys, right? Wicks do the damage, bodies tell the story. And you can see in this case, right, we have 1 wick above it, body candle close, 2 wicks above it, body candle close. So now we're going to be looking for confirmation that price wants to head towards the downside. So you can see right here, we're back on the 1 minute time frame. We ended up getting above this 167 level, but we quickly got below it, right? There was no continuation rejection above this level. We got below this level. So now what we're going to be doing is looking for a retest of this key level, which is this 867 level. We're going to have our stop just a break above this key pivot level. Now we can use this as risk as well. And our targets in this case is going to be this 858 level, which is this key pivot low from a few days earlier. So as we play the tape here, you can see that we ended up getting tagged into our position right here perfectly, right? And now you can see the 5 minute as well. Perfect rejection on the 5 minute time frame as well. The 1 minute is showing very nice price action now as well. The 5 minute looks even better. You can see all the wicks are holding this key level, which is that previous day low, and now we're continuing towards the downside. So as we play the tape here, you can see price starts pushing towards the downside. And now you can see we're underneath this key pivot low here. Now we want to use this as resistance for more moves towards the downside. You can see price wicks back up into this area and now continues towards our profit target, right? This was our first profit target that I had. My second profit target was all the way down towards 850. So if you go into the 1 hour time frame, right, we have key higher time frame levels right here, multiple touches. So that's why I had my 850 level as the next level towards the downside. And let's play the tape out as well, right? I took my first profit target here, and then I'm looking for that final profit target, which is at 850 on the higher time frames. So you can see price got underneath this level, which is 850, and now it's speeding up towards this downside, right? Comes back up and retests this level perfectly once more. You can see how well these levels are respecting, right? Price broke below this key pivot level, came back up, retesting, and now it's heading towards this downside. And now you can see right there, right, my final profit target would hit for a very nice solid trade on NVDA. I'm going to be going over my live session with you guys just here in a sec, just to understand that you guys know that I did this in real time and this is not in hindsight. Before we do that, I'm going to go on to my second example, and then we're going to move on to the live sessions to end off the video. So as you can see, we're on my second example here on NVDA, and this was on Tuesday, April the 23rd. And right, this was another break and retest, but this time it was towards this upside. So right here, you can see that I ended up making $2,500 on this trade. But the main thing, as I always talk about, is the risk amount. So in this case, I was risking 12.5 on the contracts, and I'm only risking $500 to make over 2,500. So this was a 4.35 risk to reward ratio, making it an absolutely beautiful trade towards this upside. So now let's dive into the charts. So currently we're on the daily chart, as you can see right here on Tesla. You can see that we're clearly, if you just zoom out just a little bit, very strong. We're in an uptrend, right? Making consistent higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, right? Very bullish on the daily time frame. You can see right here, if we go onto the 1 hour time frame, you can see right here on the 1 hour time frame, once we had this big push towards this downside, what usually happens on the higher time frames, a lot of the times price is going to come back and retest this level if you want to continue more towards this downside. So in this case, right, if we understand that price is most likely going to gravitate back towards this break and retest on the higher time frames, so we can use this as a thesis for a potential move towards this upside. If intraday price action gives us an opportunity, we could potentially look to trade back into this break and retest level on the higher time frames. So understanding this, now we can go on to the lower time frames here. We're on the 5 minute time frame on NVIDIA right here. So as you can see right here, we marked out the pre-market high. We also marked out the previous day high, and we're going to wait for price action to develop coming into market open. So as you can see right here, we're finally on to my intraday levels. Right, as you can see right here, we're now on the 1 minute time frame. And you can see within the first 30 minutes of market open, price has not really done anything. If you look at the 5 minute time frame, right, we've really just been consolidating around these levels. If we keep playing the tape here, as you can see right here, no real direction in price. Obviously, we do have that thesis that if NVIDIA wants to continue towards this upside, what we want to see is a relative strength compared to the Q. So far within the first 30 minutes of market open, we're really just consolidating right around open, where we're consolidating above this previous day high level. So far we're bullish onto the day. So if we play the 1 minute time frame, we let price action develop here, right? We're right now sitting right above that pre-market high level, right? What we also have now is a key resistance level. So you can see we're forming a flat top break right here, right? Multiple touches on the trend line. We also have multiple touches. That means liquidity towards this upside. So if NVIDIA, what we want to see is we don't want to trade within this chop, right? What we want to see is a strong break above. We want to see a retest of this level and then continuation towards our next key levels, which will be 824 and then 830 towards this upside. So as we play the tape here, you can see we finally get our break above this key resistance level. So we get our break above this key resistance level. Now we're leaving a small fair value gap. It also coincides with this 1 minute order block, coincides with this previous resistance, now should act as support. If you look on the 5 minute as well, we're finally having a strong 5 minute candle closure above these highs right here. So right now we're going to be looking for a retest of this key level, which is previous resistance, now act as support. We have our stop just a break below this level, which will be the key breaker structure level as well, and then our targets is going to be all the way up towards 824. And as you can play the tape here, you can see we end up getting tagged in perfectly, and now we have a very nice push towards this upside. And as we play out the tape, right, you can see price perfectly gravitated towards our 824 level. That's where I scaled majority of my position, and you can see we have a little bit more of a pop here. I end up scaling my full position here for a very nice win on NVIDIA. As you guys know, I'm going to be showing you guys the live sessions here in a second. I don't do this in hindsight, right? Everything in all these trades I've shown you guys are done in real time traded. So now I'm going to be showing you guys the live sessions that I have for us today. So right here you can see we're on my live session for April the 9th. I have these recorded for the team that they can look back on every single day. Everything is always recorded and it's not in hindsight. So I'm looking at my previous live session on April the 9th. As you can see right here, as we speed up the tape, right, I actually enter in a very nice position towards this upside. Obviously, this is not an example that I had for us, but you can see this was a very clear break and retest setup towards this upside as well, right? So I took this setup towards this upside. You can see clear displacement, order block entry, ended up entering here for a very nice push towards the upside. But the main trade I want to be talking about today is that NVIDIA trade. So if we speed up the tape a little bit here, so as you can see right here, we're on NVIDIA. I actually just entered in my short positions towards the downside. This was the exact setup I talked about earlier in my trade recap. You can see the relative weakness on the Qs as well, right? NVIDIA had that perfect break and retest setup on the 5 minute time frame. I'm telling my team that I'm going to be looking for short positions towards this downside because the 5 minute is looking very good on NVIDIA, right? So this is where I enter in my positions. I'm in NVIDIA puts for a break and retest towards the downside, and I'm in Tesla calls, break and retest towards this upside. So you can see right here, we're back onto my NVIDIA trade now. You can see how well this perfectly retested that 867 level I was talking about. That was that previous day low level where we had the perfect rejection off that level. The 5 minute ended up closing below that level, and then we had continuation towards this downside. So right now it's at low of day, and I was looking for that continuation lower towards that 854. Towards that 858 level, and you can see right Qs is at low of day as well, so that should fuel the move lower for NVIDIA if it wants to head towards the downside. And you can see our NVIDIA trade working as well, right? You can see, right, we're staying heavy on NVIDIA as the Qs come up, start pushing back down towards low of day, right? It's holding that order block level I was talking about. I draw it out right here. You can see, right, it holds that. Right now, you can see we end up getting below low of day, right? Using this order block, right, up close candle as a retest towards this downside. You can see NVIDIA is going to speed up towards that key level that I was talking about, which is 858. Sorry, this 858 on the higher time frames. Right, you can see here as well, right, end up scaling majority of my position right here, but I'm looking for my final profit target to be that 850 level on the higher time frames, right? This is that key level that was that double bottom I was talking about. We ended up hitting 3 profit targets so far, and in the last contracts I'm looking for that 850 level on the higher time frames. At this point, you can see I'm up huge on the day, right? I have $3,000 unrealized. I'm up huge amount on Tesla. I'm up also a very decent amount on NVIDIA as well. You can see we had that retest. So as you can see right here, we have that retest of that key level, which is this 858 level, right? We broke underneath that level, came up, retested it, and now we're continuing towards the downside. Now I want to see continuation down towards that final profit, which is that 850 level. You You can see right there, I end up scaling my full contracts right there, basically right before my final profit target. But that was an absolutely beautiful trade on NVIDIA towards its downside, right? Absolutely perfect retest level off previous day low. And then we rode that momentum towards this downside. Absolutely beautiful trade, executed perfectly, right? As I talked about, this is done live in real time, and now I'm going to be going on to my second live session that I have for us today. Right, this is the second trade that I talked about. This was on April the 23rd, right? This was for a push towards this upside, right? We ended up breaking above our key level that I was talking about, right? This key previous resistance level. Now I want to see it act as support. You can see I have the trade measurements here, right? I have the RR tool. I was telling the team I was looking for this retest of NVIDIA for moves towards this upside, right, which is this 823 level. So you can see right here on the Qs as well, Qs has a flat top break, right? We see NVIDIA push above these highs, and now it's retesting this level, and now I'm going to be looking to enter in calls for moves towards this upside. Right here you can see the 5 minutes trying to close above this level as well, and I'm telling us, and I'm telling the group that my stop loss is going to be just a break below this level, and I'm looking for that quick retest for moves towards the highs. So you can see I enter in puts here, and now I'm going to be looking for a now strong momentum towards this upside. You can see NVIDIA had a very nice reaction off of that level, and you can see now we're starting to speed up, right? Perfect retest off this 813 level, and now we're speeding up towards this upside, right? I'm looking for that 822 level with this Qs, very bullish as well, right? I'm expecting NVIDIA to just push higher. Right, as we play the tape here, right, absolutely beautiful retest on the Qs, right? I was telling the team that if the Qs can retest high of day, right, Qs very similar pattern, right? Break above the high, retest, and then continuation towards this upside, right? NVIDIA just sped up after it broke above this 817 level, right? Use this as a retest, speeding up towards our target, which is that 824 target, which is that break and retest on the higher time frames towards this downside, right? So we can use the break and retest as entries and potential targets as well, which is makes it the strategy absolutely beautiful. And you can see, right, push up towards this upside. And now we're looking for that final profit target. You can see I'm telling the team that I'm going to be looking to scale my positions when it hits 824. You can see we're very close. And you can see I start taking profits right here, right around 824. Absolutely beautiful trade. I only was risking $500 on this trade, ended up making over $2,500. So absolutely beautiful 5-to-1 risk reward ratio. You can see basically as soon as I bought, right, price just sped up right towards the target. That's why it's beautiful trading these high of day momentum pullbacks, right? These break and retest levels, right? You can see I had multiple confluences as well, right? The retest level, which also coincided with this fair value gap, which coincided with this order block, relative strength as well, right? Absolutely beautiful trade, right? As you can see right here, ended up scaling my final positions once it popped above this level, right? That was my final profit target. We're now inside of that break and retest level on the higher time frame. So I told the team that I was taking my full profits there, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed that video and you enjoyed those two examples that I talked about, right? Those two A+ break and retest setups towards the downside and towards this upside. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, make sure to drop me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.